that's why people like our show, because they know that we are checked by ABC News. But
we're checked by everybody.
Yeah, I mean, if we're wrong, we have, the legal note here.
The human legal note?
But we went from Walter Cronkite, basically, to this guy, Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. I checked it. He believes in dragons? He believes in dragons.
Did you triple force that?
Yes, I did. And he also thinks that dragons, like dinosaur-y type of animals, roamed the earth when people did.
Joe Rogan has dropped a massive legal bomb on the women of The View, and the blast is shaking the media world like an earthquake through a glass house. A stunning $150 million defamation lawsuit has been filed, and it's aimed straight at the daytime talk show that just couldn't stop running its mouth about Rogan. This isn't just a celebrity squabble, it's a courtroom war over lies, ego, and the high price of false accusations on live television. Rogan isn't playing games anymore. He's bringing the legal hammer down on a show that's become more about loud opinions than actual facts. What pushed him over the edge? Well, it wasn't just one offhand comment. It was a pattern of attacks, jabs, and twisted narratives that painted him as a danger to the public. One moment the hosts were joking about him, the next they were practically accusing him of threatening public health just for having controversial guests on his podcast. Joe couldn't believe his ears when they said, "Don't trust Rogan. He believes in dragons." What started as an obvious joke.
I had to read the thing about The View because I just thought it was funny.
What's
That's
this?
the only reason why I read that about me.
Dragon lover.
Joy Behar was trying to say that I believe in dragons.
Wait, what is this? I just
She
heard
said,
about
I checked it. And the lady goes, did you double check it? She goes, I checked it. He believes in dragons.
Should be like
You think they live
Sasquatch,
alongside of
bitch.
people?
Wait,
It was from a wildlife biologist who came on my podcast. So this is the most important part. This is right after she was saying, we are run by ABC News. You should trust us, not Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. So she
What?
by saying we should trust them because they're double checked by ABC News, and then making the stupidest statement. Like you didn't listen to what I said.
Yeah.
You didn't listen to what the wildlife biologist, and that's only a part.
Was spun into a full-blown smear campaign. He fired back instantly, saying, "The woman who said that clearly didn't even listen to the podcast. She misrepresented everything." The original podcast clip they mocked was a thoughtful discussion with a wildlife biologist. Hardly the stuff of fantasy creatures and fire-breathing nonsense. And the worst part? They wrapped their insults in the shiny label of trusted journalism, waving the ABC News logo like a golden ticket to lie without consequences. Joe wasn't just annoyed, he was disgusted. He said, "You're going to trust them because they say they're verified by ABC, and then they lie about what I said." That's when Rogan's patience snapped like a dry twig. He wasn't going to sit back while they twisted his words and trashed his reputation to millions of viewers. He described The View as a bizarre show that operates in an echo chamber, and millions of people nodded in agreement across the country. They always bring on a token conservative, he said, just to gang up on her and shout her down in front of the audience. That strategy had been called out before, and now it was being put on legal trial. Joe Rogan, known for his calm voice and long-form interviews, had been pushed too far by a panel that rarely lets anyone finish a sentence. He's not just suing for the money, he's demanding accountability for what he calls a pattern of dishonest, harmful misrepresentation.
You're worried about losing your job, and you're worried about podcasts taking over, and who's the source of news. And we said Donald Trump was Hitler, but half the country disagreed with us, and he won. And this is and Joe Rogan believes in dragons. Those ladies try to deplatform me all the time. They should be deplatformed. I think the best way to counter bad opinions is with good.
In the lawsuit, Rogan claims that the false claims made by The View were not just inaccurate, but dangerous, suggesting that he spreads misinformation that could lead to real-world harm. The drama didn't stop at the lawsuit either. Backstage at The View, chaos reportedly erupted as producers scrambled to figure out how to respond without looking even guiltier. Some insiders claim Sunny Hostin wanted to counter-sue Rogan for mental distress, while others joked about faking their own deaths to escape the courtroom frenzy. Whoopi Goldberg, who once confidently dismissed Rogan as a threat to society, suddenly found herself tangled in a web of her own commentary, and the internet wasn't letting it slide. Clips of her past statements began resurfacing like ghosts at a séance, reminding viewers of the moments when entertainment crossed the line into misinformation. One viewer posted, "You accuse Joe Rogan of spreading dangerous lies. What about Whoopi saying the Holocaust had nothing to do with race?" The hypocrisy was screaming loud and clear. And then came Joy Bihar's infamous moment, labeling Mike Pence as mentally ill simply because he prays. That remark aged like sour milk under the legal spotlight. These weren't just slip-ups. They were patterns of reckless speech disguised as opinion, delivered with all the confidence of someone who never expects to be challenged. Now the challenge has arrived, and it's wearing a suit, armed with a legal team, and demanding $150 million in damages. Rogan's legal team didn't hold back either. In their fiery statement, they wrote that The View broadcasted defamatory statements under the guise of public safety without evidence or verification. And what was The View's defense? Nothing but stammering explanations, dodged questions, and a desperate attempt to call it all just a misunderstanding. But it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a smear campaign disguised as commentary, and now it's blowing up in their faces like a bad science experiment.
We have to stick with it. You can't just pick and choose when you want to use the First Amendment. I agree that Joe Rogan is a horror. I
mean, I'm not saying that Joe Rogan should be removed from Spotify. He's got 11 million listeners. He's got $100 million, contract as of 2020. But I do think as the podcast platform, you have to have some sort of guidelines. How about a disclaimer on his podcast that says, this is misinformation?
So a lot of people, they would remove Fox TV also. You can try to get Fox off your cable vision if you want.
Well, there should be disclaimers.
Or disclaimers, but you can't just cancel the show because we have the First Amendment.
I agree with that.
All right.
I think people are hungry to have open conversations, disagreements, debates, and they don't want to be told how to feel about it. They want those people to have their conversation, and they want it to be up to them. Just like when they watch TV and media and news, they want to make their own decision.
Well, that's what we do on this show, right?
Sunny Hostin reportedly tried to pivot the narrative by saying, "We were just expressing opinions," but even casual viewers weren't buying it anymore. Rogan made it clear, "This isn't about disagreeing with me. This is about telling millions of people lies and pretending they were facts. The courtroom isn't a talk show. There's no audience clapping, no cue cards, no safety net when the cameras aren't on, and that's where The View is heading next." Lawyers from ABC were reportedly furious, scrambling behind the scenes to figure out if they could settle before things got worse. Producers allegedly began scrubbing past episodes and deleting clips from the internet like wildfire, terrified of what might be used against them in court. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan kept doing what he always does, hosting his podcast with his usual mix of guests, calm debate, and the kind of freedom The View could never tolerate. "People want real conversations," Rogan said in a recent episode. "They don't want to be told how to think by a bunch of actors pretending to be journalists." And those words hit harder now than ever before, because The View's empire of opinion is facing something they've never truly dealt with: accountability. In fact, the irony was delicious. After years of labeling others as dangerous, untrustworthy, or even a menace, They were finally being forced to answer for their own recklessness. More than just money was on the line here. Rogan was aiming to set a precedent. A warning shot to every smug panelist who thinks defaming someone is just entertainment. And yet behind closed doors, insiders say The View's hosts are melting down, worried, angry, and scrambling to figure out how it all spiraled so fast. Backstage, tension was boiling, like a kettle left on high heat. Staff whispered in corners, while the co-host tried to smile on camera like nothing was wrong. But the damage had already been done. News outlets were covering the lawsuit non-stop, and hashtags like #Rogan vs. The View were trending worldwide. Some fans of The View stood by the show, but many turned on them quickly, calling out years of bias, bullying, and selective outrage. One viral post read, "They mocked Joe for asking questions, and now they're the ones who need to answer some." Suddenly, The View's cozy daytime bubble felt like a glass house in a hailstorm, and every careless comment they'd ever made was now a potential lawsuit exhibit. Joe's team made it clear. This case isn't just about money, it's about integrity, truth, and the cost of spreading lies to millions of people. For years, the hosts had laughed, rolled their eyes, and waved off criticism, but Rogan wasn't laughing, and neither was the legal system. ABC executives were reportedly furious, holding emergency meetings to assess how much this could cost, not just in money, but in long-term damage to their reputation.
It is the show that people love to hate.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
They get so much hate watching and
Yep.
hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a rabies infested hen house.
And
Well, their audience is not really their audience. Their audience is a group of people they bring in to watch television shows. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen audiences before for TV shows, but a lot of them are paid. They're paid to be there. So, because they have to guarantee that there's going to be people there. So there's services that you hire. And when a show gets really, really popular, you know, like Letterman or something like that, obviously it has its own fan base.
Right.
Those people will try to get tickets before anybody else does. And in that case, they probably don't need to use a service anymore. They just get actual fans. But arguably, like, the fans, the real fans of The View that are like, oh, these ladies are on point, most of those people can't leave a...
And even behind the fake smiles and glamour lighting, you could see it. The fear in the co-host's eyes as the weight of their words finally came crashing down. Fans of Rogan rallied behind him, calling him a warrior for free speech, while critics of The View said this lawsuit was long overdue. Online forums exploded with theories, reactions, and memes, some mocking The View, others predicting total network fallout if this case doesn't go their way. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan kept recording, calm, focused, and letting the facts speak louder than the noise of daytime television chaos. The contrast was stunning. While The View hosts scrambled to clean up their mess, Rogan sat at a mic, exposing every contradiction with surgical precision. Some legal experts even chimed in, saying Rogan had a strong case, especially since the hosts claimed he spread misinformation that could harm people without offering proof. That's not just bad taste, that's legally dangerous, and the court is not a place where drama and sarcasm can protect you from the consequences. It's now a battle between two media giants, one known for unfiltered conversations, the other for curated outrage and scripted applause. And while The View tried to paint Rogan as reckless, it was their own reckless words that landed them in legal quicksand. Producers reportedly considered pulling old episodes offline entirely, fearing that more clips might come back to bite them in the courtroom. The irony couldn't be more perfect. The show that prided itself on calling others out was now the one being called out by millions. And Joe Rogan, he's not backing down. Not now, not ever. He's made it clear. This lawsuit is about setting the record straight and holding people accountable for what they say on national TV. The atmosphere at The View grew more toxic than ever. Producers whispered about damage control, while publicists drafted apology statements just in case. But Joe Rogan wasn't interested in apologies. He wanted justice. He wanted accountability. And he wanted the world to see that lies have consequences, even for celebrities. Rumors swirled that ABC executives were considering pulling the plug on certain segments or even suspending a few hosts, while legal teams scrambled to prepare their defense. Yet not a single host admitted fault. Not one retracted their wild accusations. Instead, they kept up their smug smiles, as if nothing was crashing down behind the scenes. But the internet never forgets.
Worried about losing your job, and you're worried about podcasts taking over, and who's the source of news, and we said Donald Trump was Hitler, but half the country disagreed with us, and he won, and this is... And Joe Rogan believes in dragons! Do you see what Whoopi Goldberg said?
What'd she say?
Whoopi Goldberg said that Biden could arrest all the Republicans and put them in jail. You just need to see how unhinged this kind of thinking is. Well, you know what Joe Biden could do? Joe Biden, you have to see it, because it's so
on TV.
crazy.
She said
on
Clips kept resurfacing, and Rogan's legal team was collecting every single one. Like ammunition in a war they were fully prepared to win. This isn't about silencing anyone, Joe said calmly. It's about standing up when powerful people lie about you to millions of viewers without facts or proof. Fans called it refreshing. Finally, someone was challenging the smug elite of talk TV instead of backing down in fear of backlash. The very show that spent years attacking others was now being forced to look in the mirror, and what they saw wasn't pretty. Behind the curtains, chaos exploded. Some staff reportedly considered quitting, while others begged the network to issue a public clarification before things got worse. But the clock had run out. The lawsuit was public, the allegations were clear, and the narrative had shifted out of their control. It was no longer just Joe Rogan versus The View. It was Joe Rogan versus a broken media system that too often confuses noise with truth. He became a symbol for those who've been misrepresented, mocked, or silenced simply because they asked the wrong question or invited the wrong guest. And as the case moved into the courtroom, the whole world was watching, waiting to see if The View would be forced to answer for its reckless behavior at last. Public opinion turned fast. Even those who didn't always agree with Rogan admitted that The View had gone too far this time. And when the judge reviewed the tapes, read the transcripts, and looked through the baseless smears aired on national TV, there was no denying the damage had been done. The silence inside the courtroom when the allegations were read out loud was so thick, it felt like everyone was holding their breath. And Joe, he didn't gloat. He didn't smile. He just listened, calm, focused, and ready to let the truth do the talking. Whether he wins the full $150 million or not, Rogan has already won something more important. He exposed the hypocrisy of a media machine that thought it could say anything without consequence. The View's empire of opinion may never recover from this scandal, and it's a lesson that others in the industry won't soon forget. Because in a world of noise, one man chose facts and took down a giant with the power of truth and a courtroom microphone. So next time someone says Joe Rogan is just a podcaster, remind them he's also the man who dared to stand up to the loudest show on TV and made them listen.